There isn't much to say about the exterior styling. It's rounded, it's sleek, and it's attractive, don't get me wrong, but it looks like 95% of other cars on the road. The real beauty of this car is on the inside. And isn't that what we are all taught is what's truly important anyways? The cargo room behind the third row is 23.3 cubic feet. With everything folded down and using the entire back, you're going to get up to 115.2 cubic feet of cargo room. The third row is pretty comfortable. It's not bad at all. And it's spacious back here. Well, spacious for a third row. And the seats themselves are actually pretty comfortable. Any adults that find themselves relegated to the back seats are going to be very comfortable despite not being able to be in the passenger seat or the driver's seat. And you get your own little sunroof back here. Although, like with the front, it still only has the sunshade that blocks it down. So it's a little bit strange, but it's not that big of a deal. In addition to that, you've got your own climate controls back here. You can also control your screen right here, which you can watch DVDs on and anything. So, for long trips, stuff like that, that's really good to have. Sure, you lose that extra third seat, but nobody really uses those anyway, I feel like. Nobody's comfortable in those. They're only good for short journeys. And what's better with not having it is it makes the third row more accessible. The interior is where the Enclave really shines. I mean, it is a very, very comfortable, very luxurious ambiance that you get with this. I mean, everything in here is soft touch and there's no hard plastics anywhere, which, I mean, that immediately makes it feel more comfortable and nicer inside. And you get this glossy wood accents here that are circling the console, and they're on the doors here. You get it on the steering wheel. Steering wheel is leather wrapped here, so they really did a nice job with the interior of this car. When you're looking at the center console at first, when you're looking at the dash here, there's kind of a lot going on. Probably a little bit too much, especially because a lot of the buttons are pretty small. And the other issue is they're not actually buttons. They sense your touch, almost like a touch screen, but it doesn't have that touchscreen feel to it or anything. It's a little bit strange. I'm not a big fan of it. There are, for the climate controls, actual buttons that you're going to feel have some give and that behave like buttons. So the 2016 Enclave has the looks, but does it have the performance to go along with it? Well, kind of. The Enclave is powered by a 3.6-liter V6 that produces 288 horsepower and 270 pound-feet of torque. These numbers are decent. Nothing more, nothing less. But the car can tow up to 4,500 pounds using this power and torque, and that's pretty impressive. Plus, that's likely to come into play more often than acceleration or top speed for a car like this. Fuel economy isn't the greatest. It gets 16 miles per gallon city, 22 miles per gallon highway, for a total of 18 miles per gallon. Driving this car, it has a bit of a paradox to it. I mean, the handling and the steering feels pretty light and nimble, surprisingly light and nimble, more than you would think for this car. But then at other times, this car feels like it's bigger than it actually is. It's this weird thing where depending on how you're driving or the conditions you're driving in, it's just everything sort of plays into how it's going to feel for that given moment, whether it feels lighter and nimbler than than you would expect it to, or if it feels heavier and larger than you would expect it to. Another thing is, a lot of times if people don't want to drive with the radio on, they'll just push it in and turn it off. But if you do that on this, you turn off the entire display, so you can't use any of its features unless you have it turned on. So you'll just have to turn the knob all the way down, which is strange. I'm not sure why they decided to do that. The acceleration, it is what it is. It's kind of noisy for not as much or as fast as you're going. But it's also not terrible. The engine isn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not a reason you're going to buy this car. And that's not all the engine's fault. I mean, there's also just a lot of other really good reasons that are going to sort of supersede the engine as to why you would buy this car. The top trim levels for this car, with all of the options, are going to come in right around $50,000, which is tops for the class. And despite all of the things that this car has going for it, it still seems like a little bit too much. So here's what it comes down to. The 2016 Buick Enclave is a great option if you're looking for a 7-passenger SUV. So if the price doesn't scare you away, then there really aren't too many other hurdles to jump if you're considering purchasing this car.